Trigger warning. This episode will discuss experiences with sexual assault, domestic abuse, and substance abuse. Viewer discretion is advised. Is there any hobbies that you're working on, or passion projects that you've been pursuing?
I've been trying to get more into music. I feel like whenever I'm sober, I'm writing a lot more.
Yeah.
So I've been recording an EP with a friend.
Oh, that's nice. A EP. Okay, wait. I know this might be a dumb question, but that's usually just a single, right? EPs, or is it you're doing a full album?
Not a dumb question, because I didn't know at first either until he's like, let's record a whole EP. It's usually 5 or 6 songs.
Oh, okay.
And
nice.
It's your first putting it out
there,
yeah. Getting your name and music out.
So the person that you're writing with, how do you know him? How did you guys link together?
I'm so glad you asked that.
Yeah.
We when to rehab together when we were
nice.
4 years ago.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
And he went to school for music production, and then when we were patients there, we were always we're gonna write something together.
Yeah.
We're gonna make music together. And 4 years later, we're finally doing it. So
nice.
I'll write everything with my ukulele, and then just because it's the only thing I know how to play, so I'll get the chord sequence out with that, and then I'll bring it over to him, and he'll start producing the song. It sounds so different with ukulele compared to
where are you at in the progress of your EP? You have any songs done?
We have 2 songs fully recorded ready, and 1 song in the work, and then I have 2 more that I wrote but we haven't started on. Yeah.
Nice. So you're basically halfway.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have a scheduled release date at all?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish.
I will keep tabs on that. Let me know when you're getting closer to that release date, and I'll push that out for you. I'll let people know and stuff.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked in a long time since working together. How long? It's been what? Well, it's been a few months since I worked at RYLA, or maybe a month.
Yeah.
About.
It's been 4 months since I've been there.
Since you've been there, yeah. So it's been 4 months since we actually had a conversation, and then we're working, so we haven't really had real conversations and stuff. So, I guess to kind of kick us off, what is the basics of who you are? So where did you grow up? How did you grow up and stuff? How old are you? That kind of stuff. The background.
Grew up in Lomita. My mom worked for Redondo School District, so she was able to get me to go to school over there.
Nice.
Thank God, because over there it's LAUSD, and then I got to go to school with all these rich kids, and I was in lower class. Yeah. And how old am I? 21. Yes. Finally 21.
Nice.
I had my 21st birthday 3 weeks sober.
3 weeks sober.
Yeah.
Nice.
Crazy.
Nice. So how did you celebrate that one?
I had a bunch of my AA friends come over, and we played water pong and listened to music and ate food, and it was great.
Wow, so wholesome.
Yeah, it was really wholesome.
That's nice.
A lot of love in there.
Yeah. So how would you say that you grew up? What did your home situation look like? Friend situation look like?
Yeah.
All that stuff.
I have 2 big sisters.
Okay.
There's a 6-year gap between all of us.
Dang.
So it's 21, 26, 33.
Oh, nice.
And I think because the age gaps, we weren't really close until I became an adult, because we're all at such developmentally different stages of our life. And we all grew up really different. My mom was definitely stricter with my older sisters, and then with me it was still strict compared to my friends, but not as confined as that. And I think I don't know how to phrase it. I don't want to slander my mother, but there was definitely abuse in the household.
Yeah.
And it got more physical when I got to high school. And I think that's because me and my mom are both so hard-headed, and so we just clashed. With my sisters, they wouldn't really fight back. They wouldn't talk back as much or stand up for themselves. And me, I'm always gonna stand up for myself.
Yeah.
And that definitely made us clash a lot. So by the time I was in high school, there was CPS cases, and the relationship was awful. it's very different now in a good way.
That's good. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dang, I actually feel like that's a common pattern with like the relationship between siblings and the relationship between parents and stuff. So like, at least from what I've noticed for me and also like other people that I've talked to, like usually the older ones are like the relationship with the parents, it is a lot stricter and it is a lot more like how do I say, not transactional, but like it is stricter. Like they're like, I guess parents are like testing things out, I don't know. And then as the kids come along and you have more and more kids, I don't know what it is. I feel like they get a little bit less strict.
They get a little tired.
Yeah, maybe they get a little bit more tired and stuff.
Yeah.
But
and it's new for them too when they first start parenting.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think we forget that our parents are learning things for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, I know that you said that there was some abuse in your household and stuff like that. And so, how was that for you? Was that something that happened to your older sisters too, or was it more
my
like
oldest sister definitely dealt with it when she was younger. By the time she was older, she just like kissed.
Can I go ahead.
Okay. She kissed ass to avoid like conflict, and she was like straight A student, perfect.
Yeah.
And then middle sister, I think she was a favorite. And she was a really good liar, so she wouldn't get in trouble. And then me, I would just like get caught for everything. I was just all over the place. And I think I didn't realize that it wasn't normal until middle school. I remember my like childhood best friend spent the night one night, and my mom had like threatened to slap me or something, and to me I was like, that's so normal.
Yeah.
Like that's mom's. And she like started crying and said she wanted to go home.
Oh, your friend. And was this one of your friends from like that Redondo school area?
Yes.
Like a little bit, like the kid was a little bit from the nicer area of town and stuff.
Yeah, she lived like a few blocks from the beach. We had been best friends since we were 5, and she was like blown away, like, wait, really? Does your mom actually do that? I was like, yeah, what are you talking about?
You had that conversation like during the sleepover and stuff?
Yeah. I remember like the full conversation. And then there was a time, high school, so my mom has PTSD, and so she'll like get triggered and react out of like a place of fight or flight and fear. So there was a time where like I saw a friend of mine, we were driving me to school, and I saw a friend of mine walking down the street, and so I was 14, so I like reached over and I was like honking the horn to like say hi. I know, you know how it is. And my mom thought I was like gonna grab the wheel, and like, you know, she just like went into fight or flight, and she punched me in the face.
Dang.
And I went to school with a black eye, and she like felt horrible about it, called my friend's dad that's a cop, and was like, I'm gonna turn myself in, like I don't know what to do. And so that was like around the time where it started to get bad.
During like in high school and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was times where like I would have a panic attack, and my mom would think that I'm like running away or something when I'm just like going outside for fresh air.
Yeah.
And we have very different points of views on it, but I remember trying to go outside, and she like threw me down and punched me in the face and called the cops on me.
Jeez.
Yeah.
For getting some fresh air.
Yeah. It just made no sense. And the cop basically told me, like, you have one more, or I think I was 16, so he's like, you have 2 more years. Like, you're either going to go into foster care, or you just have to, like, suck it up. But I really suggest you go stay with a friend.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang.
So that's what I did.
So why would you say that it got worse around high school? Was it something that changed with your mom, something that changed with you, or?
Yeah, I think it was. Yes. Yes, to all of the above.
Yeah.
Where do we begin, Marcus?
Yeah. Don't worry, take your time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I was 5.
We're going all the way back. It's okay. Let's go back.
When I was 5, I was getting molested by my neighbor for 2 years, almost every day. And I'm in a good place with processing that now. But when I was 14, I had, like, just acknowledged what it was. And because I, like, didn't tell anyone for 11 years. And
so you told somebody around that age, around 14?
Yeah, I told my mom I, like, really wanted to go to therapy, and I wasn't saying why. And then as soon as I got to the first therapy appointment, I just, like, broke down. Couldn't even get the sentence out.
Yeah.
And that was, like, the start of me talking about it. And I love looking back at that because the fact that I couldn't get through the sentence of saying it without crying, and now I can, like, go into full detail about it with someone or a therapist and not cry, and I think it just shows, like, how much I've grown with that and healed from it. But it was a family friend, and so my mom, hearing about it for the first time, she had her own reaction to it, and I think part of it, as we've talked about now, was, like, blaming herself. And then I started smoking weed to cope around that time. And my mom caught me one time, and it was trauma dump again.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Sophomore year, I went to go smoke with friends, and I was on a bunch of antidepressants. And so I smoked weed, couldn't move my body, and I ended up getting raped that day. And that led to, like, a full month of smoking weed constantly, trying to cope. And my mom found out I was smoking weed, and we got in this massive fight where she beat my ass, to say the least. And I tried to kill myself that day and went to the hospital, and CPS wasn't letting my family in, so I was just, like, alone in this hospital. And they're taking pictures of the bruises, doing the whole thing. I got sent away for 6 weeks, mental hospital for 2 weeks, and then a mental health inpatient for a month. And basically, when I was in the mental hospital, it's only supposed to be a 3-day hold. And they were like, there's an open CPS case, so we can't let you go home. So you're going to have to stay here for 2 weeks until we figure out where to put you. And so they decided mental health treatment center would be better than foster care. Definitely agree.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they did that. So I stayed there for a month, and CPS case closed, and I went back home. And so that was kind of the start of, like, me and my mom's relationship just down the drain completely. And then that started years of just the same stuff over and over.
Yeah, so going backwards a little bit, like, how was it? So a lot of the stuff that you were saying in your story, was that, like, a lot of firsts, like the first attempted suicide, the first, like, time in mental hospital? Like, that was a lot of firsts for you. So how was, like, first, how was it in, like, the mental, what was it? Just a mental hospital? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. So how was it spending, like, a month in there? What was, like, the routine, and what were you thinking, and how does it look?
The first 2 weeks was inpatient. It was like a mental hospital, so it's just, like, hallways, no windows. You can't see out the windows because they're, like, fogged over. You probably get to go in this little courtyard with grass for, like, an hour a day if you're not too depressed to do it. And there's the first time that I was there, I was in the co-ed area, and so there's kids that are, like, in psychosis from drugs. There's kids that are schizophrenic, and so you're, like, seeing a lot of stuff that you've never seen before going on around you. And then there's just crazy stuff going on in there.
What would be the craziest, like, I know you're only there for a month, right? What is, like, the craziest thing that you experienced?
There was someone, I don't know what they did, but they call it booty juice.
Booty juice.
Booty juice in the mental hosptal.
I'm interested in this booty juice.
It's horse tranquilizer that they inject in your butt cheek to tranquilize you when you're losing it. Yeah.
And
yeah,
so what's the story like?
You just like see another teenager like screaming on the floor, and they're like injecting them, and like all these adults are holding them down. You're just like, what the hell is happening in here? And yeah, it's scary because you realize like you have no way to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And I ended up going in 3 more times in high school. And all of those times I was in, like, the all-girls unit. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have that at the time when I went when I was 14.
Yeah.
And so I was in all-girls units the rest of the times. And the last time I was there, I was 17, and I was having a panic attack. Mm-hmm. And they, like, wanted us all to go to group. And I was like, I really just need to sit in my bed. Like, I just need space. I was communicating like an adult. Yeah. And a nurse came in, she starts yelling at me, and she's like, if you don't go to group, I'm going to booty juice you.
Jeez.
Yeah. And so I, like, go into more panic because I'm like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. Like, they can drug me, they can, like, hold me down when I'm having a panic attack, and there's already, like, this PTSD forming from the stuff with my mom, and so you kind of just learn how to, like, fully disassociate to protect yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually insane.
Yeah, but inpatients are a lot better. Like,
really?
Where your girlfriend works, those places are a lot better.
Yeah.
That's where I was sent.
I would hope so,
the 2 weeks.
Because hearing your stories and knowing that, like, you have been in similar places to like where Daph works and stuff like that, and hearing the difference in experiences from, like, what you had and, like, how her house runs, it's actually crazy that like, you go to those houses for help, and then you're treated in a way that is, like, almost seems counterintuitive, you know, counterproductive.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it makes it worse.
Yeah. So.
But in those places where she works, you're given, like, a therapist. Yeah. And if at any time during the day you need to, like, check in with someone, there's people that are actually qualified for the job. Mental hospitals, they're, like, not qualified at all.
So like, did you feel like when you were in the mental hospitals, all the times that you were there, do you feel like it was actually beneficial for you? Did you feel like you came out of it in a better space, or did you feel like it just caused more damage?
It's a good question, because 2 of the times it was because I actually tried to kill myself. Mm-hmm. And the 2 times in between those times, it was just thoughts, and I asked to be put there. And so I think partially it was because it felt safer than at home because of the abuse. And it was like a break from everything that's going on at school, having to go to school with the guy that raped me. And then it could also be, like, really scary in there. But then there's a lot of people that I've met in the mental hospital that I'm still friends with to this day. Yeah. Because you do, like, connect with the other girls in there.
Yeah, so that is what you would say was the most beneficial part of it all, like the building of relationships. And
I think the conversations with the other clients are more beneficial than any of the groups, any of the staff. Yeah. Yeah,
that's pretty cool, though. Yeah. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like, at least from what you're saying, like, oh, we got, like, outdoor grass time for an hour. For not, like, it sounds like sort of like prison in the sense of, like, like you. I mean, like,
I'm
of course
sure
there's
prison's
difference.
A little more dangerous.
Of course there's, like, differences and stuff, but
yeah, it is pretty similar. You're fully trapped there.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. Before we go on to the next thing, did you ever go to prison?
No.
Okay. Because you said it is pretty similar, so I was wondering if there was any.
I have friends that have, so I've heard
and then you just talked.
Things. I feel like I would assume it would be more gang stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely check out the last episode. There was that one.
I did watch that. Yeah,
that one was very interesting. If you're interested in, like, prison life and
yeah.
But anyways, so going back to the story, you had just came out of the mental hospital for the first time, because of all that stuff happening. And then you said that your relationship with your mom was kind of all downhill. So, like, if you don't mind sharing, how did that look like? How, because at least for me, already, like, where you're at in the story, in your story and stuff like that already is, like, pretty crazy stuff, you know? Like, I don't, like, I would say that I've been blessed to, like, not really meet, not to meet people, but, like, not to know people that have gone through that experience, because obviously, like, it's a really...
Yeah, it's not something you'd want your loved ones to go through.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, like I said, up until this point in the story, like, you've already gone to, like, a mental hospital, you've already, like, committed attempted suicide, like, you've already, like, gone through, like, sexual abuse and stuff like that. So all of that is, like, a lifetime's worth of stuff, and you're, like, what, at this point, you're, like, 14?
Yes, yeah.
And that seems crazy, so I'm, like, kind of interested in how it even got worse.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the high school years were the worst of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, pain I was feeling internally, I think that was the worst of it. But yeah, just the rest of high school, just the stuff with my mom continued. When I was 17, we got in a fight, and I was kicked out. And I lived with my uncle for a little bit. I think I came back home a month or two before my 18th birthday, stayed for 2 weeks, we get in another fight. I'm ready to off myself again, and I go to the mental hospital again, willingly, and then I get sent to treatment, inpatient, for the second time, and spent my 18th birthday in there. And I was told by my parents that it would only be a month and I'd be able to come back home after. And then on my 18th birthday, I was told on a Zoom call that, or I guess Zoom didn't exist back then, it was like FaceTime on a therapist's laptop. And they told me, you need to stay there for 3 months, and if you want to come back home, you have to be fully sober. And I couldn't see it at the time, but it was definitely the addict in me that was like, I would rather be homeless than not do drugs. And I'd only done drugs like a handful of times at that point. And well, should we dig into that?
Wherever you want to take the story. This is your story.
So through high school, I had that month that I talked about where I was smoking weed every day. And then that was the start of this cycle where I would go a few months with nothing because I would get caught. And then I would, I think because of all the abuse at home and just the craziness, I wanted so badly to feel normal. And so I had this like deep-rooted obsession that I wasn't able to acknowledge until recently with like, I just want to be a normal teenager. And so what I was seeing as normal around me was like kids going out and partying and trying drugs and feeling like free and young.
Yeah,
and I
so you thought that was like your picture of normal, of like...
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what I was wanting, and I think I was also obsessed with feeling out of my body, which is really common with survivors of sexual assault. And so I would go... Sorry if this is all over the place. No. ADHD.
Yeah, you're good.
I would get caught, and then I would go a few months without it, and then I would go to a party or something, sneak out, try to just have one drink, and I would get completely hammered. And then I would like have a terrible experience, and so I'd be like, I'm not going to do this ever again, and I'd make it a few months, and I would go back.
Yeah.
And I would keep going back, and
when you say like you're not gonna do this, are you talking about just drinking, or are you talking about like smoking? You're talking about partying, talking about the whole picture, or you're just talking about one specific? So
because of how many medications they had me on,
as in
doctors, my parents, for PTSD, OCD, anxiety, ADHD. Long list. So they had me on a lot of medications, and every time I would smoke or drink, I would have a really bad reaction to it, where I either couldn't move my body. There was a time where I smoked one hit of a joint, and I went completely blind for like 3 hours.
That is actually insane.
Yeah, I don't know how it happens. I've talked to some people that had a similar experience. It's crazy. And then there was a time where I smoked a wax pen during lunch my junior year. And then I'm like walking to my math class feeling a little funny. I thought I was just high, and then I seized out as soon as I sat at my desk.
Jeez. Just
from a wax pen, because it became serotonin syndrome. So I was on SSRIs, which raise your serotonin level for depression, and then I guess the weed just threw it over the top. Yeah. So I would have these traumatic experiences with drugs and alcohol, and I would still go back to it. And a normal person would be like, that was traumatic. I'm never smoking weed again.
Yeah. So what made you keep going back?
Being an addict, I think. Yeah.
So would you say that you, like, felt more normal doing that stuff than not on it?
I think I felt more normal and happier. Yeah, like it was an escape.
Little stints of like being high and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's weird because you would think like that's an awful experience.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of trying to like get at here is like for me, like I said, for me it's like to hear that you went blind for 3 hours. I would think that like, that would be like, no, I'm done. Like I need to see. Yeah. But like the fact that it kind of continued. It's just like for me, I'm trying to like comprehend that in my mind, like what is going on in your brain and like how does that work? Because that's like insane. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I don't even know if there was any understanding of it at the time. I think alcoholism just like runs in my family. My immediate family doesn't have it. Like, my parents are not alcoholics. My siblings are not. But, like, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins all got the alcoholism. So, I think it just carried over. And I also found out in therapy pretty recently that it's some high percentage, I could be off, but it's, like, 90% of people in Alcoholics Anonymous, people with alcoholism have experienced childhood sexual abuse. So I guess it's just really common for it to manifest into addiction. Just
as like a way of coping and stuff. Yeah. So I kind of want to like continue on your story like as chronologically as possible. I know like we're jumping around here and there because but that's totally okay. Just because some parts were like kind of dig deeper and stuff, but like if we were to continue to go chronologically, so again, you just got out of the mental hospital for the first time. You're saying that this time in high school is probably like the worst for you. Like, why would you say it was the worst? Like, what made it worse than anything before or after?
I think being underage, and so I felt really trapped and unsafe in my home, and then also just like I didn't feel like I was known, like truly known, and because there was like all this trauma that I had like hidden from my family, and I think I ended up getting raped 3 more times in 3 times total in high school, because I kept getting like blackout drunk. And I went to school with all of those people, and they were like in my friend group, so I'd see them, not like my immediate friend group, but the same people we'd like party with, and so I was stuck around these people at school.
And you never really like tried to tell anybody or like...
No. Yeah, I told no one.
Yeah.
Until after high school. Yeah. And I think that was not wanting to fully accept that it happened again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just in complete denial of it.
Just like bury it and it didn't exist kind of thing.
Yeah, and the first one that happened, I ended up reporting to the police 2 years later when I like finally processed it. And the other one that happened, I didn't report until I was 19 and I had a year sober, and I felt like I was finally at a place where I could. Yeah. And unfortunately, when you wait that long, there's such like a lack of evidence, so there's nothing that really comes out of it.
Did you still feel good to be able to like tell somebody at least, and like kind of like did you ever feel like that was like a weight lifted off of you to just at least share it with somebody else, or like tell somebody else even if like nothing really came of it?
Yeah, so the first one that I reported when I was 16, it had like come out to therapy, and so we legally had to report it. And I don't think I was fully ready. I was also a kid, so I hadn't even really processed it. And I remember the detective for the case, they have you recite the whole night in detail, and they write it all down and stuff. And afterwards, I had to be alone in that too. Like, my parents could not come in with me. And afterwards, he said to me, you need to, I told him there's another case that I, like, want to tell you about, because I, like, realized, like, I need to tell him about the other times that this happened. And he said, well, you're going to have to do a whole separate case file, so we can't get into it. And how old are you? And I was like 16. And he's like, you really need to stop getting yourself into these situations.
Dang.
And so after that day, I just like completely blamed myself. And
who was that? Who said that to you?
The detective for the case. Yeah.
That is okay.
Insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And
so you feel like from that moment, that's when you started to apply a lot of self-blame?
Yeah. I kind of just put it onto myself, and so I ended up not reporting any of the other cases. And when I was 19 and reported the other one, there was a lot of praying involved, which helped. I had a year sober, so at that point I was like really relying on my higher power to pull me through situations, and it was super healing. That was the only one where it was really empowering. And after I said the whole spiel and told him the whole story, the detective, I told him he was like, is there anything else that you want to mention? And I was like, yeah, when I was 16 and I told you guys about this other situation that happened, this is what a detective said to me, and I just want you to know that took a huge toll on me as a kid, and I hope you guys never say that to another teenage girl ever again. And I just explained to him like how much that deeply affected me, and he was like, it was a different detective, so he's like, I am so sorry that ever happened. And he like figured out who that old detective was, but just me getting to say that and like stand up for younger me was so healing. Yeah,
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you had that opportunity.
Me too.
Like, as you kind of like were processing through it and finding confidence in yourself and being able to just have confidence in yourself to stand up, like you said, for your younger self.
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people, I think, some people don't get that opportunity, like, as they get older, to process that stuff and kind of like retouch on what happened and get peace from prior
absolutely,
cases and stuff. So
yeah, I'm really grateful for that experience.
Yeah.
It felt like a door was like finally shut. Yeah.
So would you say, again, going back to like the chronological thing, would you say that like that high school period where you said is the worst, like, was it mainly focused on those cases of sexual assault? Like, that was what made it bad? Would you say like that would be the main issues that you faced during that time, or was there like other stuff too?
I think that stuff affected me subconsciously a lot, but I wasn't really an acceptance about it, and so it wasn't like on the forefront of my mind, but subconsciously it definitely affected me. And then It was mostly the abuse at home that made it awful. Yeah.
So how did you deal with that? Like, how, again, like I said, how did it get worse? And how did you deal with that? If you don't mind getting into, like, how did that look at home and stuff?
Just, like, constantly, me and my mom were at each other's throats. Yeah. And, yeah, there was just a lot of physical abuse, mental, emotional, and now looking back, I can see how my reactions to it were insane also. Because I think a normal person would, like, get hit and, like, shut down, maybe. I don't know. But, like, I would always fight back. And so I will fully admit there were times where my mom hit me and I hit her back. Yeah.
So you guys would, like, there were times where you guys would just be, like, brawling low-key. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think that in high school, that also made me start getting into these relationships with guys where I would, like, fully rely on them because of the lack of, like, motherly nurturing that I had during that. Yeah.
Were those relationships helpful for you at that time? Did they pan out to be, like, would you look back at them and say that they were beneficial overall, or?
I think it helped to have someone to lean on during that time. But now, being in AA, I've had to look at, like, the effect that my actions have had on people. And I look back and I'm like, I wish they left me so badly. Like, I wish they left sooner and saved themselves because I was severely codependent.
You felt bad for, like, the way you were treating them and, like...
Yeah, just, like, how much they had to witness because, like, obviously I grew up really fast. Like, there was all this crazy stuff going on around me, and it was kind of like I, like, pulled another teenage boy. Like, we're both kids. They're supposed to be enjoying being a kid right now, and I'm, like, pulling them into my tornado mess.
What was one example of, like, a moment that happened where you kind of brought him into a situation that he didn't really belong in? And
when I was 17 and got kicked out, that fight, it was because my mom had already said that my boyfriend could come over, and I was working full-time since I was 15, and so I was, like, at work all day. I tested out of high school a year early, so by the time I was 17, I was just working full-time. And I was at work, and he picked me up from work, and we went back to my house, and I forgot to do the dishes. We were just, like, watching TV. And my mom got home, like, 30 minutes later, and she was like, you can do the dishes, and he is not allowed to be here before you do the dishes, and lost it completely. And that was what was, it felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells in my home, because it was, like, little things like that, where I was just, like, had a long day at work, forgot to do the dishes, and it turns into a fist fight. And he witnessed that completely. Like, he was standing in the living room, saw all of that, and
he just was, like, sat there watching it,
and he had, like, heard about it.
Up at all.
No, my mom's scared.
Watching it, like, world star.
Right. My mom, like, went to swing at me, and I think at that time, because it had been going on for so many years, I was just done. And I spit in her face, which I should not have done at all. But the way I saw it at the time was, like, I'm about to get punched in the face for...
What's the worst that can happen?
I was just done. Like, I didn't even want to live at that point. And so I spit in my mom's face, and my dad ended up, like, pulling us apart, and I got kicked out immediately, and he had to, like, drive me to leave. And I'm, like, sobbing. I'm like, can I please move in with you? And he's like, dude, we're so young. What is happening?
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, and he called his dad, and his dad found me a homeless shelter to live in. So I lived there for a few weeks.
Just a few weeks,
Yeah, it was, like, 3 weeks, I think, and then I moved in with my uncle.
So how was that experience? You were 17 at the time?
Yeah.
Living in a homeless shelter. Was there a lot of other kids your age at all, or?
There was probably 5 people total. It's weird. That time feels like really blurry.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, there was a few other kids my age. It was a house. You would never guess that it was a homeless shelter. It just looked
from
like
the outside.
Yeah, it just looked like a normal house in Culver City. And basically the homeless shelter was for domestic violence, and so it was supposed to be like a secret spot to hide. And they had it like all legally set up, so you could stay there for up to, I guess I was only there 2 weeks, because you could stay for up to 14 days without parent permission. And then if you got parent permission, you could stay for 3 months. Yeah.
So you're only there for 2 weeks?
2 weeks, and then my uncle picked me up and I stayed with him.
Was that the only time that you experienced homelessness, or like?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that like further along the chronological timeline? Should we like touch on that later?
It's like 2 months later.
Okay. So 2 months later, is there anything major within those 2 months that happened before we get to that?
Yes. I stay with my uncle for about a month or two, a few months. I think a few months, and then moved back with my parents for 2 weeks, and then that was when I went to mental hospital, treatment center, turned 18 in there, and then I signed myself out on my 18th birthday because my parents had said you have to stay there for 3 months instead of 1 month and stay clean afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one question before we continue on is like, how come you had to keep moving back in with your parents? Like, because you said that you were like at a mental hospital, and then when you got out you moved back with your parents, and you got kicked out, and then you were at like the homeless shelter and your uncle, and then back with your parents. Like, if you knew that, not if you knew, but like since that was a situation at home, like
why did they keep sending me back?
Yeah. Was it that like they kept sending you back to your home?
So since I was underage, the time when I was 17, it was because my parents let me come back.
And was that all out of choice for the most part too? Like,
I
you were
so. I think I
going back home, or?
Yeah, I think I still like really longed to have a good relationship with my mom, and my niece lives there, and so I like wanted to be with her. And the times before that, I would actually beg when like police officers would come on nights where like the abuse was bad. I would beg them to not let me go back home. Or like when I was talking to CPS, I'd be like, please, whatever you do not let me live here anymore. Like, please put me in foster care.
Yeah.
And they would just be like, there's not enough evidence, we're going to try to do the best we can. Yeah. It's crazy how much evidence they actually need.
Really?
Like, you could have there was one time I had a black eye, and my softball coach reported it because she noticed.
Yeah.
And there's like nothing they can do because it's your word against your parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you kept going back home, and then you were at your uncle's house, you went home. And then how did you become homeless again after that?
I stayed with my sister's best friend for about a month. And then I met this girl, Kiko, and we became best friends. And she was living with her friend's boyfriend's family because they had an extra bed, and her parents had also kicked her out. And she had a car, I did not. And we decided we wanted to drive to San Diego one weekend, and then we decided we never wanted to come back. And we lived in her car for, I want to say, a month or two. And we're in San Diego for majority of it. And I think that was the start of when my addiction got bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So during that month or two, like how kind of, if you could paint me a picture of how, like, daily life was for you, like, what did you experience, and, like, what were, like, the hardest parts of it all?
Daily life was, me and Kiko had no money, and so we would Postmate all day, to try to get enough money for weed and, like, a bagel maybe. And
so the priority was weed and then the bagel.
Yeah.
Okay.
The priorities were really messed up. And we would get the weed, and then we would skate at sunset on the Strand in San Diego until we found people we should not be hanging out with to buy us alcohol, because we were both under 21. I was 18 and she was 19.
Yeah.
And we would just get shit-faced every night. Yeah.
And then, so that was, like, kind of like a day-to-day thing for you guys. Was there any point during that time that, like, I guess my question is, like, what was the turning point? Like, when did you guys decide, like, okay, something needs to change? Like, what was that experience? Like, what did that look like?
I think it got worse before we got our shit together, and we came back from San Diego. We were living in the car in our hometown, and we started, like, partying with people in our hometown more often, and I went to a 4th of July party. Me and Kiko split up for the night, and she, like, went and partied with her old friend group from high school, and I went and partied with some people I knew, and that was the first night that I did Xanax. And I met a guy named Jack around that time, and we became best friends, and he offered for me to live with him in his family's big mansion in Manhattan Beach.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
it's a big upgrade from the car.
It was a very big upgrade, thanks to Jack's generosity.
Yeah.
And so I went and lived with him, and Kiko
Sorry, before you move on, like, what was the relationship between you and Jack? Just some guy you met?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Jack, he was an addict too. We're both in a lot better places with that stuff now, but he was in active addiction during that time, and I think he might have been able to see that I was too. And actually, when I first met him, he was in an outpatient program, and so he was clean, and I think he saw me in active addiction, was like, this girl's the same as me. Yeah. And so he let me live with him, and after, like, a month or so of me living there, we were both partying together and doing drugs all the time. Yeah.
So I heard you say at the end, before I so rudely cut you off,
Very good. Was not
that
good.
that you ended up moving in with this Jack guy, and Kiko ended up staying in the car.
Yeah.
Did that, like, cause, like, a rift in your guys' relationship? Like, what was the conversation with that? Because in my mind, I'm like,
yeah, I totally forgot about
you get to go
this.
to, like, the big mansion, and she still has to kick it in the car. Like,
I completely forgot about this. The reason I moved out of the car was because we got in this fight. I feel like Kiko's fine with me sharing about this because we laugh about it now, but we're both sober now, so we both acknowledged by now that we have a problem and got our stuff together. But at the time, we were both still using, and we went and smoked with one of her friends, and I was mad for some reason, I don't remember, and I yelled at her, "You just use all of your friends for drugs." And, like,
okay.
I was just not looking in the mirror. Like, I did the same exact thing, and I would just point. During that time in my life, I was in complete denial about my addiction. I'd point the finger at everyone else and be like, everyone around me is an addict and an alcoholic, but I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, it was just so delusional. And we got in this fight, and I called Jack up after knowing him for 2 weeks, and I was like, I need a place to stay. She kicked me out of the car. And he was secretly letting me stay in a spare room in his parents' house for a few days. His mom is psychic, and yeah, it's like her living, and she just walked up to him one day and was like, "Hey, I know that girl's been living here."
She's like, "Someone's living in my room."
Yeah. She was like, "She can fully move in. Like, she can stay. You don't need to lie to me about it." And so I stayed there.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was very nice of them.
Okay, so again, chronological. You were saying that around this time is when it started, your addiction, because you had Xans the first time at that party. Was it the same party that you met Jack? This Jack character?
It was, yeah. It was the same night that I met Jack.
Okay, so how, like, what did it look like for your addiction to become worse? Like that, for, like, drugs and stuff?
I think I was surrounded by people that were further along in their addiction as me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also had this like obsession with proving myself to people. And so I would like I would drink until I was like probably had alcohol poisoning. And or I would, my thing was I had to be stoned 24/7 since I turned 18 up until this point, which is like 6 months later, and had to be stoned 24/7 from the second I woke up to the second I went to sleep. And then I would add alcohol on top of it when it didn't feel like it was enough to numb me, and then when alcohol and weed together was not enough to numb me, I would add Xanax.
Yeah. So it was all basically about trying to be numb, trying to like not feel and acknowledge like all of the other stuff that we had previously talked about, like all of that, like those issues and stuff.
Exactly.
It was all to just like not to think about it and not to like feel it.
To just pretend it never happened. Yeah.
So was there ever a point where, or not was there ever a point, but what was the point of like it either getting worse or it getting better? Like what was the next chapter, I guess?
Where it went too far.
Yeah.
So I'm living with Jack for about 3 months, and his mom pulled me aside, and she's the sweetest person ever, and she was just like, me and Jack's dad had a talk, and we feel like we're enabling you because we've been telling you you need to get a job for a few months now. There's been no progress. I wasn't even trying. I was, I think, so deep in my addiction that I was just incapable of doing anything responsible. And she was like, I'm really sorry, but like you have 2 weeks to find another place to stay. She was crying. She felt so bad.
Yeah.
And we still have a relationship to this day.
That's nice.
Yeah. But I completely understood why. And I moved out. I am so grateful that she did that, though, because she didn't want to enable me. She knew I was just going to go further down. And it was all out of love. So I lived on my friend's boat for a few days.
Okay.
Yeah.
A boat.
Yeah, a boat.
So a car, a mansion, a boat.
Yes. Yeah, boat. I think the boat was like a week. I'm still best friends with that guy. And then I moved in with another friend. And I don't think she was a full addict, but she was a stoner. And so we were just always high. And it took probably 2 months of living with her where I reached a point in my using where this like it just like stopped working. The drugs like were not fixing anything. I was super depressed again, and I finally hit this rock bottom where I was feeling suicidal again. I was like, it's been a year since I felt this way. So there was one night where I had this prescription of this medication that I would take as needed for panic attacks. and basically it's like a blood pressure medication, and it's supposed to lower your heart rate, and I took a bunch of them to try to stop my heart. And I had this habit at the time where I would take double the prescribed amount, and then I would keep taking 2 more every few minutes until I was either numb enough to get myself to go to sleep or I was dead. Like, that was the goal. And there was one night where I honestly think it was God, where it was like, stop taking the pills, you've had enough, go to sleep and call a treatment center in the morning. And I called up the treatment center that I knew Jack had gone to, and I just broke down and was like, I need help. I told them that I was just depressed and suicidal because I was still in denial that it had anything to do with addiction. And they asked me how much I use substances. They list like every single substance, and you have to tell them how often you use. And they were like, I told them how often I used, and they said, you have to go to our substance abuse program. And I was like, okay, but I don't have a problem. Like, I don't know why. And they're like, okay, then you should have no problem with this. You just have to be clean for 6 weeks. But from the amount you're telling us you use, you need to be in this program. And I was like, yeah, fine, no problem. I have no addiction, so that's fine. I can, you know, I was just so stubborn and denial. And by my second day clean, I'm freaking out outside of the treatment center, sobbing, like hyperventilating that I can't smoke weed. And a week later, I'm freaking out that I can't drink, and it probably took until I was 3 weeks clean to say that I was an alcoholic.
And that was just an alcoholic, like you still haven't even come to terms about like the drug use and stuff?
I think that I was an alcoholic and an addict, I'd accepted all of it. By 3 weeks.
By 3 weeks. So what was the process like? What was the process in those 3 weeks to get you to like come to terms with that?
They force you to go to AA. They don't force you. It's not like they're like holding a gun to my head. They tell you if you want to be in the program, you have to go to 2 or 3 AA meetings a week. And so I started going, and immediately the first meeting I'm at, I'm hearing them talk about it, and I'm like, whoa, this is me. And I didn't want to fully accept it, though. I still thought maybe it's just a phase, and they also make you get a sponsor in AA, and so I picked the only girl in the room that looked young at that meeting. And
how old was she at the time?
I think she's like 24.
And you were 19 at the time?
18
at the time.
Yeah, I was 18. And I told her, I don't know if I'm an alcoholic or not, but I'm at this treatment center and they're making me get a sponsor. And she said, that's okay. We can read through chapters 1 through 3 in the big book, and if you still don't think you're an alcoholic by then, we can stop.
Big book, like?
There's in AA, there's this book called The Big Book of Alcoholics
like
Anonymous. It's basically the Bible for alcoholics. Yeah. It's it explains the 12 steps of AA, and the first 3 chapters is what you read, where it really breaks down what an alcoholic really is. And by chapter 1, I had realized.
Crap, this is me.
I was like, I relate to every sentence. Holy shit. It was mostly the chapter, I think it's called More About Alcoholism or More About the Mind, something like that, but it goes into, it's chapter 3, I believe, and it goes into the mind of an alcoholic and the feelings internally and just like your thought process and the way your mind really works. And that's what I related to the most.
Can you remember like some of the sentences and some of the phrases in that chapter that you were reading that like really hit home for you?
There's a few. Let me think about this.
No worries. Take your time.
There's There's one part where it talks about everything we do to try to control our using. And it's like, you tried to only drink on the weekends, or you tried to not do it at work. And I just looked at the progression of my using, and I was like, wow, everything I said I wouldn't do, I did.
Yeah.
Where, like, I would start using, and I would say, I'm only going to use socially. And then within a few days, it's not only social, it's just to survive being awake. And then you say you're not going to do it at work, and you're high at work the entire shift. And so that was really relatable. It kind of talks about how you feel as a kid, like so different and isolated, and it goes into like the self-centeredness of your thinking. Yeah, which was really humbling to look at, because I like always thought I was this like giving, loving, selfless person. I realized I'm not.
And then what was that like about? Like, what were some of the phrases again in there that like kind of hit home for you?
I think in the way that you kind of like co-sign everything you do, I very much had a mentality in high school where it's like, what people don't know can't hurt them. And so I would lie and keep secrets, and I would cheat on people, and I would use people to get drugs and alcohol. Like, I would hang out with people I didn't even like, just like smoke their weed or have them buy me alcohol.
Yeah.
And then it goes into, in the book, they call it incomprehensible demoralization. And so that means you're doing things, all morals out the window. You're doing things you thought you never would have done. And at that point, I think it was the way I would like, when I was homeless, I would find guys way older than me and sleep with them to get alcohol because I wasn't old enough to buy it. Not too old. I'm talking like 30s. Like 30s. I was 18, so that's still a big difference. And looking back even further, I did the same thing when I was a minor. And like, those grown men had no business hanging out with me, but I would because I wanted drugs and alcohol. Yeah.
So, was there one moment in I think you said it was a few months from when you, like, from beginning the program to when you actually were able to, like, realize that you were addicted and stuff like that? Was there, like, a singular moment that you can remember that it kind of, like, clicked for you and it, like, flipped for you, like, oh gosh, like, I'm an addict and I need to change? Was there one moment that, like, looked like that? Or was it more, like, slow progression of, like...
When I was sober or when I was using?
When, I'm saying, like, when you started the program, like, what was the catalyst to kick off your personal...
realization.
Your personal realization and your personal, like, I need to fix myself and I need to work on myself. Like, what was the catalyst to start your mindset and change in that way?
I think it was seeing how much better the people that had been in the program longer than me, how much better their lives got. Because they would talk about their past and it was so similar to mine, but I saw them as these, like, amazing people that had their shit together. And they weren't in pain anymore from the stuff that they had gone through that was so similar to what I had gone through. And I just wanted that so badly. Yeah. So it wasn't even, like, realizing, it was more just realizing that I wanted what they had.
Yeah.
So, it was the first time where I, like, really saw something that might be able to work to fix me. And
that was just the model of people that have gone before you. Really. Yeah. So, kind of like backtracking, because I really like the way that this, like the way the story is progressing and stuff, and we are getting to a point where, like, this story is about to shift, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, we're getting to this place where the story is about to shift, right? Oh, it does get dark again. We go back down? Okay.
We
all right.
relapse.
Okay. Actually, that's interesting and stuff too. Mm-hmm. So actually, let's move forward with that, because my question is more so like on the coming back up side. So let's continue. So we were about to get better, and then
yeah, so I stayed clean for 18 months, and I relapsed. There's multiple reasons why I think I relapsed. Yeah. I think part of it was I hadn't fully accepted that I was an alcoholic, which is step one of AA, is like fully admitting to yourself that you are powerless over drugs and alcohol. And I had accepted it for a little bit, but then after getting some time sober, I started to think maybe it was just a phase because of how young I was. And of course, the addiction starts calling your name again, and you go back out. And also, I was in a relationship with someone I'd met while I was sober. He had 2 years sober. I had 18 months. And he relapsed, and I stayed with him for, I want to say 2 months into his relapse, and then it was too hard to see someone you love go from like the person that you know and love and you've been with for over a year and you live with and you have a dog with, and this switch just flips where they are not that person anymore, and there's drugs and alcohol all over the apartment that we shared, and it was too hard to stay sober. So I relapsed, and we used together for a few months, and then we broke up.
So was that only for like a 2-month stint that you were like using and stuff again, or was that 2 months kind of like again the beginning of something else?
It was 2 months that we were using together, and then we broke up, and within, I want to say 2 weeks after the breakup, I was calling my friends from AA, sobbing, being like, I need help getting clean again. And after a week after the breakup, I was going back to AA with them, and for a week I had to be high out of my mind to go to an AA meeting. But yeah, I had to be high to even get myself into the room, and I think it's so much harder to come back to AA than to go to AA for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did you, if you're saying that it's hard to get back into AA, like how did it look for you to go into like relapsing into that next part of like getting better and going back to AA and stuff?
I actually ended up only staying clean for 2 weeks, and then I had a night where I got in a fight with my sister, and of course my initial reaction was get high or kill myself, which was just my way of coping for so many years. And I took a bunch of magic mushrooms, which was probably my biggest drug of choice at that time. And I always describe it to people as, I think magic mushrooms can be really healing for someone that's not an addict. But for me, it was like a warm hug from my mom, or like being back in the womb. And, which I'm sure you can imagine why I personally would get addicted to that.
Yeah.
And took a bunch of magic mushrooms, and I call my best friend from AA, and I'm like, I messed up, dude. I am on my sidewalk, I am tripping out, and I really need you to pick me up, and can you please take me to a detox tomorrow, like an inpatient detox for substance abuse.
Yeah.
Because I'm struggling to get clean. I lasted 2 weeks. And best person ever, Clayton, he picked me up, and he has 6 years clean now, I think, and he let me come down from this high in his room, and he just babysat me all night. Best friend. And he took me to a detox the next day. And I stayed there for a month. I think I stayed clean for 2 more months after that, and then I relapsed again.
was that time...
So 3 months total.
Of being clean?
Yeah, and then relapsed again.
Okay, and then you relapsed again. And then how many more times did you, like, get clean and relapse after that one?
That was the last time.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's where stuff went downhill. And I got into stripping, which we can go into if you'd like.
Yeah, so...
And now I'm clean again, but...
So then that's fairly recent then, of like the last time that you relapsed.
Yeah, that was back in fall. So about a year ago, almost.
Yeah. And then that time that you relapsed, was that one like about the same, worse, or not as worse than the other times that you relapsed and stuff, or pretty similar?
I think the way I was using drugs, it didn't get as bad this last time compared to before I ever went to AA. But compared to how I just like demoralized myself again and once again did all the stuff I never thought I would ever do, I think that was a lot worse. And like the effect of the stuff I was doing that it had on me mentally, that got worse. Yeah. Okay,
so the good news is that you said that was the last time you relapsed, so it's basically up from here.
Yeah,
in the story.
It's all right.
Well, almost. Almost, we're almost there. Okay, yeah. So into the next part of the job that you were working at before this.
About that.
Yeah, if you want to get into it, like whatever you're comfortable sharing and stuff. Yeah. So like, how did you...
into it?
How did you decide to like do it and well, I guess explain what it is and stuff.
Yeah, can we say that on here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was stripping. I was working at a strip club, and I was working full-time in the restaurant with you.
So this is
this is February.
This is February of this year.
Yes.
Right, so you left RYLA when? March. So you were working at the strip club while you were still at the restaurant, right? So how long did those two overlap?
I want to say 2 months. Yeah.
Okay. So we were working at the restaurant together.
It was like January, February when I started doing it.
And then, so how did you like decide to work at a strip club?
So a friend of mine that started working at that strip club, it was someone that I trusted in AA that had multiple years sober, and she came into the restaurant for dinner one night, and I was like dropping her food to her table doing my job.
Yeah.
And she was on one and she said, oh my god, I started working at a strip club and it's so great and there's so much money, come work there with me. And I said, I almost said her name. I told her I will never, ever, ever do sex work. And I'm not going to work at a strip club, but I'm glad you're happy doing that. And she said, well, come collab with me on my OnlyFans. And I said, no, absolutely not. You're like my little sister. That is so weird. Absolutely.
She was younger than you.
Yeah.
Or she is younger than you.
Yeah, she's 2 years younger than me. Yeah. And then, so it just started me saying no. And then one of my friends had told me that she was wanting to get into working at a strip club. She has her little brother and her grandmother as her dependents.
So she really
she needed the money. And so I was like understanding that that's what she wants to do. And I was like, you know what, I have a friend that's doing it. I will take you into her club. I'll go with you. You could just check it out, see if it's even something you want to do. But if you're going to do this, I'd rather you do it somewhere that I know someone that also works there and you guys can protect each other.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather you guys be together than be at two separate places and be unsafe. And
smart. If
so,
you're going to do it, might as well make it the safest way, I guess.
What we thought was safe. And so I went with her. Of course, I'm higher than Yeah, I'm really high. And we go in, and as soon as I walk in, I texted the friend that works there right before this, and I was like, hey, just a heads up, I'm going to introduce you to my friend. Are you cool with us coming in? And I'm going to introduce you. She really wants to get into this job. And she had already known I was not interested. I said, no way, I will ever do it. And she told her manager that we were both auditioning, even though we were just coming to look at the club. I'm not sure why she did that. There's definitely some resentment I'm trying to work through with that. And as soon as I walked in, the manager walked up to us, and it's this big guy, like, towering over me, double my height. And I'd never been to any kind of club before at that point, because one wasn't 21 yet. Yeah. And by the time I was 18, I was sober, so, like, I wasn't going to any 18-plus clubs. Yeah. And he said, I heard you guys are auditioning, like, come on stage, audition. And I was like, no, that's not what's happening. What are you talking about? And this friend that works there runs over, starts talking over me, and she goes, come on, just do it. Like, just get on stage. Like, I have extra outfits and shoes for you guys. And looking back now, it seems like it was very planned and sketchy. And I looked at my friend that I had brought, and I was like, do you want to? And she was like, yeah, sure. So I was like, all right, guess I'm doing it.
So was it more so like you're doing it for your friend that you were bringing, like,
yeah, I think it was partially that, but also when I'm really high, I'm just a yes person. And so I don't know if it's like trying to prove myself or I just get like a case of the fuck it's when I'm really messed up. And so we did it. Yeah. And I got hired that same night and worked my first shift. And so my roommates, oh my God, when I went that night, I told my roommates, like, I was just going to, like, show my friend the club. I come home, like, fucked up, and I'm like, guys, look at all this money I made. Like, I'm a stripper now. And they're all just like, what the hell happened? Like, what do you mean? 5 hours ago you were saying you would never do this in your entire life. Like, what is happening to this girl?
So after you auditioned and they gave you the job, like, you were still, it wasn't, again, just because you were high that you didn't, like, say, like, I actually don't want the job, like, because you still, like, at that point, you know, still could have, like, not gone through with it, but, like,
I think once...
Was it the money, maybe, like, that you were like, oh, crap, this is actually, like, a lot of money?
I think it was seeing the money.
Yeah.
Because I would work 3 hours and I'd walk out with $800, and it was my whole rent. Okay. And, being high, I don't think I really... And it being my first night, I didn't get a full feel of what was actually going on there and how sketchy and unsafe it actually was, because they, like, make it seem safer and better than it really is the first night. And, I don't think it had fully registered. Yeah. And then by the time I wasn't high anymore, I had all this money in front of me, and so I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how long did you work there again?
3 months.
3 months. And we were talking about it earlier, and you said it was, like, a terrible experience. Yeah. Like, what, was it, like, management? Was it coworkers? Was it just the job description itself? Or
it wasn't safe. So, basically what the job entailed is it was a fully nude strip club. So, you're, like, dancing on the main stage on a pole. That part... I didn't mind as much, but the part was like, that was really, would I do any of this now? No, absolutely not. Sober? No. Yeah. But high me didn't really mind the stage part, but you have to do private dances, and in order to get paid at all, you have to do 3 private dances every shift, and so you're in this, like, small room, dancing on someone, and there's, like, a curtain or a door, and no one can see what's going on in there, so you're not really safe. And there was one night where I took a little bit of shrooms. I wasn't, like, hallucinating or anything, but, like, my body was definitely feeling, like, a bit limp, and I was also high. I'd smoked weed, and I went into a private dance with 2 girls, and it was like fine at first, and then it was a really busy Saturday, so security was all over the place. They were not doing walkthroughs like they were supposed to, and it was super loud in there because of how busy it was, and one of their husbands comes back and he held me down and sexually assaulted me. And so after that, I didn't go back. I told the friend that I was working there with, and after like a week of going, just isolating completely, did not pick up the phone for anyone, did not leave my house. And she called me and been like, where have you been? Like, you haven't been at work. And I told her what happened. And she told management, and they called me and talked to me about it, tried to make me feel better about it, so I'd come back. And I went back for 1 shift, had to be super fucked up to do it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I literally couldn't get myself to walk in there. Like, I'd have a friend come with me for that last shift, just to, like, feel safe. And then after that, I would, like, pull up to the parking lot, park, and I couldn't get myself to get out of my car without having a panic attack. So I'd just end up driving back home.
Yeah.
And after that happened, like, 3 times, I was like, just quit, Milena. Like, you can't even get out of the car anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is very intense, and thank you for thanks for sharing, though, because like obviously a lot of this stuff is very hard and to share. It's very like difficult to share, you know, and like I said, we are nearing to that point where like it turns around and
it does,
you know, you're at this point now that you're sober and stuff. So how did it get from that point to now to where you are now?
So I think that time was like my rock bottom, where okay, I also want to mention the amount of weed I was smoking was insane. So the last 3 months of that, so like a month prior to me even stripping to me getting sober after being done with stripping, I they call it marijuana-induced psychosis, which I had been, like, treated for the first time I ever got sober, and it basically means you are completely disassociated. It feels like you're watching your life from a movie screen 24/7. You're not, like, hallucinating or anything, but you're just, like, completely disassociated, can't feel anything. Feels like you're not real. And I had this moment where I was driving to work to RYLA, because I would work at the restaurant 5 days a week, and then I would go work at the strip club right after until 5 a.m. And driving to work to RYLA, and I'm, like, stopped at a red light, and I just thought to myself, holy shit, it's been months since I've felt anything. Like, it feels like nothing's real. Like, I don't even know how much time's gone by. And I, like, touched the... You know how the door handle in cars is, like, metal? I, like, was touching the door handle because it was metal, and I thought maybe it'd be, like, cold enough to, like, get me back in my body. Didn't work, but, like, how fucking crazy did I... Like, I probably looked insane. Like, I'm just, like...
Petting the door handle.
Petting the door handle at a red light, like, in complete disassociated state, driving. I should not have been driving.
Probably not.
And, yeah, that would happen a lot, where I'd be, like, completely disassociated and be leaving one place, and I'd, like, come to, and I'm like, how did I fucking get here? Yeah, so that was, like, a moment where I was like, shit, I think I need to get clean again. And what was, like, the moment? I think it was just being so, like, paranoid all the time because of what happened at the strip club. And then, like, realizing how much... Okay, so I get sexually assaulted at the club. A week goes by, I feel nothing from it. I knew that I got sexually assaulted. I knew that I didn't feel okay about it, but I was feeling nothing. And I was like, I haven't cried. Like, what is going on? I'm so numb. This is not normal. And I called some friends from AA, my old sponsor, which thank goodness she's been my sponsor through all of it since my very first sobriety. Even when I was relapsed, she would still make time to see me. I called her up and they helped me get clean again.
Yeah. So it was the connection that you made with other people that like basically helped you out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then Kiko, the one that I lived in the car with, she got sober the same time that I did when we were 18. And which is a miracle in itself. She stayed clean. She has 3 years. And so she was the person I called. And I said, I really need you to come over tomorrow and throw out all my drugs with me. And I need your help getting clean again. And she showed up for me. And she threw everything away. And she got on her knees and prayed with me and held my hands. And we, like, journaled together. And she just, like, showed up in the most loving way possible. Yeah. She's a saint.
So how long have you been sober now from that moment?
4 months.
4 months sober.
4 months this week.
That's good. I'm really happy for you because, like I said, that is like a crazy story that you have. And I guess now that we're at this point of we're in the present and now you've been 4 months sober, I guess one of the main things that I'm interested in is like what were some of the things that you were able to do maybe for yourself or maybe the people or things that you relied upon that that got you here, but more so like because I know that you did talk about like some suicide attempts and stuff like that. So yeah, like what were some of the things that helped you get to where you are now? I know that you like one of the things that you talked about before was just I guess to give you ideas, not that you need any, but like you said prayer, and then you said like there were just being able to rely on people that were close to you and people that have like gone through certain things but were farther along in their like sobriety and farther along in their like I guess sobriety. So what were some of the things that you were able to rely upon to get you to like where you are now?
I think looking at everything I missed out on my last sobrieties, like the things that were missing in my program to keep me sober, which I think I really missed the fact that it's a spiritual program, which it says in the big book about 1,000 times, but for some reason my first sobriety, my mind just kind of skimmed over it. And this time my program that keeps me sober is like mainly about my relationship with God. Which for anyone considering getting sober, don't let that turn you away from AA. Because it doesn't have to be like one specific God or like this man in the sky. It's like for me it's just like a spirit, not man or woman, just like infinite oneness, divinely protected and guided. Like everything's happening exactly how and when it's supposed to, and I fully trust in that. And it's just mainly about relying on a higher power for me now. And handing like all of my fears, all of my character defects, really looking at myself in the mirror. I'm on my amends for AA right now, so I'm having to like meet up with all the people that I wronged and take accountability and really acknowledge like how it was wrong, exactly what I did, and ask them, did I leave anything out, and is there anything I can do moving forward? And I think that's helping me forgive myself a lot, and also letting go of resentment is a really big one, because resentment is like a big thing that keeps people in addiction. When you have like all this hatred and anger inside of you, it leads you to using more. And so like forgiving my mom and really seeing her as human and someone that was doing the best with the childhood that she had, and the help that she got. Like, I definitely had a lot more therapy and resources than she did growing up, and she experienced 10 times as much trauma as I did. So there's a lot of love for her now and a lot of forgiveness, and I think I've done a good job forgiving the people that I had resentment towards, but right now the main thing I'm trying to work on is forgiving myself, especially with, like, doing stripping. That's a big thing that I, like, I'm trying to forgive myself for putting myself through. Yeah. But it's a work in progress.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it always will be a work in progress, you know. Like I said, especially with your story, like, I feel like you've lived like 1,000 lifetimes. And like, you're very, very young, and that's why, again, I was very excited and very interested to hear your story, because, like I said, I knew somewhat, like, that you had a very, very interesting story and a very, very inspirational story.
I would, like, randomly crack a joke here and there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it was. Because, I mean, definitely in the industry that we worked in together, you do meet a lot of people that go through, like, substance abuse and
oh yeah, it's a big thing in restaurants.
Yeah, substance abuse and just, again, like I said, me personally growing up the way that I did, I wasn't exposed to a lot of that stuff. So there are very, like, even just little things that I hear here and there were, like, kind of, like, surprising to me. But for some reason, I guess with you, there was something that just felt a little bit different. Like, I from the conversations that we did have, I knew that you were very open, and I knew that, like, there were some things that you had experienced that I could just kind of get the vibe that you wanted to share for the benefit of others, you know?
Yeah. It wasn't in, like, a way of, like, dwelling. It was... Yeah.
Or, like, a way of, like, oh, pity me kind of thing, or, like, oh, I've gone through more than you and this and that. Like, it really did feel like it was genuine, like, this is what I've gone through. Like, I want to be there for those people that have been or are going through that kind of thing. So, like I said, I was very interested in your story and stuff. Because of, like, what you've gone through, you know. But yeah, I guess I am interested. I guess just to kind of recap on the whole thing that we just talked about, like, what would you say that it was also kind of like your experience with your spirituality that helped you forgive your mom? Because I know that you said your relationship with her has gotten better and you were able to forgive her and stuff, and I was wondering, like, was there anything that, like, led to that? Was it more of, like, your spirituality and stuff, or?
Good question. I think the main part of it was, I definitely pray for patience a lot, and every day lately especially. I've been asking God for just to guide me through that relationship, and inviting God into my life throughout the day, every day.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing that helped with...
Very good. Go ahead.
Forgiving. I think the main thing that helped with forgiving my mom was the 12 steps for AA, because there's a part in step 4 where you're working through resentments, and so you're putting the person you're resentful for, why you're resentful towards them, and then you put what it affects, and then you're looking at the fears involved with that relationship. There's a prayer that you say, and it's basically, God, please help me show my mom the same patience, pity, and tolerance I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. My mom is a sick person. How can I be helpful to her? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. And in that experience of, like, saying that prayer, I really started to see her as human, and someone who has been through a lot and is doing the best she can. Yeah, and not holding my mom to such a high standard. And my sponsor, thankfully, has had similar experiences with her mother, and so to be able to have this really intimate, vulnerable relationship with someone that has way more time sober than I do. She's, I want to say 7-8 years clean. And for her to share how she like maneuvered through that relationship and found forgiveness, and she always reminds me like to not hold my mom to standard. Like, I am in no place to judge. The only person that should be judging anyone's actions is God. Yeah,
that's really good to hear. I'm actually, what I'm interested right now is like, I am very glad that you have found comfort and peace and growth through your spirituality and through your relationship with God. I guess I'm a little interested in like how that came about. Did it start from like AA, like because it is like a more spiritual program, like they I don't want to say forced, but was that like kind of like your introduction to spirituality or your relationship with God? And
I always believed that there was something out there growing up. My family stopped going to church when I was like a toddler, just because lives got busy. But my parents would tell me that I was Christian, so I'd be like, yeah, I'm Christian, even though I had no idea anything about Christianity. Like, if you asked me years ago to explain Christmas, I would not be able to. So there was like kind of an introduction to believing in something bigger than myself growing up, but I don't think I really started tapping into that fully until AA. But my first sobriety, I felt like I was kind of faking it. I didn't fully feel it. I would have like these brief spiritual experiences, but I wasn't putting in as much effort to have a relationship with a higher power. And I hate to say it, but I think doing magic mushrooms
kind of was like the kickoff for you.
Kind of was the kickoff. Did it need to be? No. I think you can absolutely tune in without doing stuff like that, but it just so happened that it gave me a bit of a spiritual experience. And I think when the breakup happened, I was thrown into survival mode because this person that I became like fully invested in, and I like pictured myself spending the rest of my life with, I thought I had my whole life planned out. It was like ripped away in a second. And he took the apartment and the dog with him, and so it was like completely starting over, everything ripped away, thrown into survival mode, deep pain, and the only thing I needed to do was like, God, please get me through the night. And I would pray for God to hold me every single night to fall asleep. I'd be like, God, please just cover me in your love and like hug me right now. And you start, when you ask for it, you start to have a spiritual experience.
Yeah, like when you really deeply, like in your soul, ask for it.
Yeah, when you are on your knees asking God for...
Yeah, he'll show up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I actually didn't know that you were... Would you say that you're Christian?
I wouldn't say Christian. I kind of agree with all religions. I think they all got a point. And I don't not agree with Christianity. It's more just I have like a broader outlook on it where I think like absolutely respect everyone's choice. But my personal experience with it is like I see the Bible as like metaphors. When it talks about hell, I kind of see it as like I personally think hell is living a life in fear. And so, like, handing that fear over to God is reaching nirvana, and enlightenment.
Yeah, but then, so that's what I'm saying, like, that's actually crazy to me, because when I started this conversation with you, and I didn't know that it was going to end up here, but in, like, the best way possible, you know, like, I didn't know that you say that you would have a relationship with God, and that's, like, what you rely on to get you through all this stuff, and what really, like, turns your life around. Because, like I said, if you, like, the last episode with my uncle and his, like, journey in prison, it's literally the same thing. Of, like, struggling with the life that you feel you have no control over, a life that you feel like is lost to you, a life that you feel like that there's no hope in, and God shows up when he needs to, you know.
Everything just starts aligning.
Dang.
Jobs, home, everything you need just starts lining up.
And is that what you'd say that what you're experiencing right now, that, like, everything is kind of, like, healing itself and getting back to, like, a place where...
I think the biggest thing I got out of the stripping experience was thinking money would fix everything, and then realizing that it didn't, and then realizing now that I'm doing better, looking at the fact that when I had all of this money, I was doing horrible, and now that I'm, like, so broke, like, I'm working a job that like, I'm not getting paid shit. I'm, like, barely making my bills, but I'm making them, but so I'm blessed, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. Like, I feel so much more at peace, so much more connected to the universe and God. It's like walking on a cloud now. Because I'm in tune spiritually, and the brokest I've been in a while.
But it's like, I know that you say that you wouldn't claim that you're Christian, but in the Bible and what we talk about as Christians, one of the main, like, kind of themes or things that we would always say is, like, in our weakness he is strong. And it really goes to show, like, we can be at a place where, from the outside looking in, or just on the topic of money, right? On the outside looking in, like, someone would say, oh, you have a lot of money, like, you know, you would be happy. But even in the absence of all that, even in the absence of financial security and stuff like that, like, you would say that you're still happier now. And just to see, like, how although you've been through all the things that you've been through, and it's definitely been a struggle, like, the way that God has kind of, like, flipped your life around to where you are now, I think is really inspirational. And like I said, I didn't know that that our conversation was gonna end up here, but definitely purposeful, you know.
Absolutely.
Definitely purposeful. So I'm really happy that you're able to, like, share everything that you've been through and what got you through it, because, I mean, not everybody is spiritual, right? Not everybody has a relationship with God. Not everybody, you know, sees things in that same way of, like, how God can be a healer, and how God can be our comfort, and how God can be like a pillar for us in our weakness and stuff. But just to show, like,
you're never alone.
Like you never know when God is gonna show up for you, but he's always there. Like, when, like, exactly always what you available. Said, like, when you call, he'll be there, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy that we were able to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you so much for, like, again, being really honest, because it was definitely some heavy stuff, and a lot of people wouldn't be willing to share. But like I said multiple times throughout this thing, like, your story and everything that you've been through and how you got to where you are now, and is definitely inspirational, you know, like, the whole, like, us being able to meet at RYLA for just a short amount of time, and being
that
able,
in itself, I feel like, is God.
Exactly. Kind of like,
the universe is always throwing the perfect people in my life at the perfect time.
So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate our conversation, and I think it'll be very fruitful. So
I just want to mention...
Yes. Go for it.
How you're just, like, I really value how much you let God use you as a vessel. Because there was, you probably saw it as, like, such an instinct, but the night that, like, my car broke down after work, we got off work at, like, midnight from the restaurant. My car's broken down, stuck there for hours, and you're, like, trying to... What's it called? Jumpstart? I don't know how it works. Yeah, you were like, you waited there until my dad got there, and something that's like taken so for granted, I feel like, in other people's lives, but is like so valuable to me, is when, especially when a man can show up for you as just a human being and not sexualize you or like make you uncomfortable or feel unsafe, and just like sees you as a human being and is like, I'm gonna help you out of the goodness of my heart. So I really value that.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
You're a great person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Like I said, I mean, we both said, it's definitely purposeful that we were able to meet, that God put each other in our lives and stuff. And so again, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Cool.